Well, hello everyone. I'm Jill Bloom, publisher of Walls and Ceilings and roofing contractor and building enclosure. Today is May 15th, 2020. Thank you for watching, whether you're on our website, LinkedIn, Facebook, Twitter, or whichever platform you consume your content. I am here today with an incredible group of gentlemen, John Wyatt, who's the editor of Walls and Ceilings, and Mark Fowler, who's the editorial director for Walls and Ceilings, and also has other various roles in the industry associations. And I'm also honored to include two incredible contractors talking with us today, who are Shawn Burnum, VP of Operations with PCI out of Kansas City, and also has several offices located throughout the country, and John Hinson, who's division president at Marek Brothers out of Dallas, but also has offices throughout Texas and also Georgia. So thank you guys so much for joining us today. We do really appreciate it. And John, I'd love to turn it over to you to kick off with some questions for these guys.
Thanks so much, Jill. Thanks to all joining us, and especially to the viewers that have been watching our series reporting on COVID-19. We've really appreciated all your enthusiasm and the feedback we've gotten. And again, this is just a continuation of our dialogue with those in the industry and just to see what's happening. So let's kick right into it, gentlemen. Mark and I did come up with a series of questions, and I'd like John to start off, being down there in the Lone Star State. Give us kind of one of the Texas point of views here. So yeah, tell us what's going on in your region, and especially what's happening with projects.
Yeah, well, first of all, Jill, John, Mark, thank you for having me. Good to see you, Shawn, on screen, and thank you for having me, and I'm honored to be on here as a guest. Texas is experiencing the same thing that everybody else in the nation and across the world. We're having a new way of thinking and crisis management, However, the work still seems to be going up. We're blessed that construction is an essential business, and we're very fortunate to see there have been some pushbacks and some delays, people thinking on how they're going to get through this crisis, but yet we have no foundation to build on, to say it bluntly.
So Shawn, that's great news. I think for certainly what John here is saying in regards to, there hasn't been a great loss of work. So are you seeing the same thing, or is that unique to Texas?
Yeah, first of all, thank you for the invitation, Jill and John and Mark. I appreciate that. Hopefully our viewers that are committed to watching this get a little bit of insight on what's happening, and always fun to see John. If you know John personally, he's a lot of fun to hang out with. So, but hey, at the beginning of this, back in March feels like a lifetime ago, doesn't it? So back in March, when this all happened and we all tried to figure out what was happening to not only our families and our communities, but our companies, it was like drinking out of a fire hose. And we all trying to figure out what the impact was going to be. How could we keep our employees safe? How to adjust accordingly. And certainly the government was trying to wrap their arms around it as well. There was a lot of chaos. I will tell you, as we've moved through that, I'm happy, as John indicated, that we were able to remain a critical business and that we were able to keep folks employed. And certainly it's been different. Our offices in large are closed, so everybody's telecommuting and things like that, but we're getting the work done, and we're keeping progress on the majority of our projects that have elected to move forward. And hey, we're just trying to figure out, just like everybody else, but it's been a very different time for all of us, for sure.
Hi guys, this is Mark. I really do appreciate you guys being on. This is really great, and hello viewers. Keep reading Walls and Ceilings. We're here to help you out and get you through all this. You know, one thing, because as Jill said, I work with a couple of different other associations and on a national level. One thing I've noticed is that it seems like when I talk to people in New York, it's quite a different story than when you talk to somebody in the center of Texas or whatever. They said not too much has really changed for us. And in New York, and I do know of some companies, and if there's any viewers out there that are in the New York, that area like that, I know some of them have been hit they've been hit pretty hard, where their jobs have been sort of shut down. And I do feel for them. And of course, for all our healthcare workers that are taking care of them. I'm wondering, because I've talked to a lot of people, a lot of contractors about on the job sites, what kind of protocols are you seeing? Or is it pretty much business as usual? Cleaning, the social distancing, which I also, and I'll throw this out there for, I guess we'll start with John. I know social distancing, a lot of contractors tell me it's really tough how do you do social distancing when you got a guy one guy's cutting studs and another guy's handing or driving. And I've had them say, how do I do that? I mean, it seems like it's almost impossible to keep that 6 foot at distance. And are you guys, I don't know how you're addressing that, or maybe you have some insights.
Well, that's a great question, Mark. That question came up back in March, and we actually solicited input from our teammates, those guys out there doing the work. And they came up with some great ideas. They came up with the recommendations, and we pretty much exercised those specific tasks that you cannot do by yourself because of safety issues, whether it's lifting certain products or materials. Then they're required to protect themselves with, for example, face masks. Hello, I'm gonna show you. But just like any other environment, the more dense it is, the more concerns we have and the more precautions we have to take.
Yeah, I agree with John. The interesting thing is as you mentioned, I think it is a little different for each location, each area. PCI has offices in Washington State that were essentially closed. Certainly New York, also the same case, New Jersey, Philadelphia, those areas are closed for business. So they're getting impacted at a different level than maybe, as I sit here in Kansas City, we have here in the Midwest. But for those jobs that are running and that are, we're trying to keep our guys safe, we've done a variety of things. It's the typical things that you've seen. We're following the CDC guidelines, the social distancing. We're making, cleaning agents and hand cleaning much more prevalent. We're cleaning the equipment. We're cleaning the gain boxes, touch points, and all of that throughout the day. And obviously, we also are using our masks and wearing our masks where appropriate, where we need to be in contact or in closer conditions. We're not having any gatherings. Typically in a construction site, in the morning, you have your huddle. You'd have your stretching and all of that. Well, we're doing that differently now. We're not getting together as crews. We even have staggered start times on projects so that all our crews don't show up and are walking the same corridors at the same times. A variety of jobs, and this is really owner directed, are taking temperatures as you walk in. We've had a variety of jobs that are doing that, but just a host of different ways, not only to keep our guys safe, which is ultimately what we're trying to do. At the end of the day, that's what we want. But we're also trying to present an image to our community that's asking the question, why is commercial construction essential? We're trying to present to them that we can be safe. We're very good at following a regulatory program, and we're trying to continue the work without a big back push on our industry. So I think it's important for our guys first and foremost, but I think it's important as an industry to appear that we're taking the precautions and doing the right thing.
Those are.
Go ahead. Mark?
Those are great answers, and I agree with that, with everything you said. And I guess what the reason I'm asking, and I just want to clarify, because I know there's got to be contractors that might be a small contractor working in some town and doesn't, am I the only one going through this? And I'd like to ask a follow up on that,
Sure.
because it did remind me of others that talk about their production rates. And it's funny because when you mentioned, Shawn, when you talked about the staggered starts, I talked to one contractor who said, because of the staggered starts, we're having less trade stacking. So it's kind of helping our production a little bit. And I'm hearing other stories, well, it's not really because of all the cleaning and all the extra protocols you have to follow. It's kind of hurting production. So I'm getting it's kind of that mixed bag again. So I'm just kind of curious, like, John, I'm sure you've been tracking. I mean, you guys are big contractors, so you're always following your production rates. Do you think that they're getting better, worse, hanging in there about the same?
It's a really good question, Mark. And to be honest with you, our guys are putting in extra effort, just like Shawn had said. If we don't present and produce an enviable business to be in right now, someone's going to come in and try to shut us down.
Correct.
So the point is, our guys are actually going and putting in extra effort, not only to be safe and practice the safe, all of those things that Shawn's doing and said earlier, but also to be effective and efficient at doing it, or we won't be able to maintain our work, our commitment to our clients. So they're taking the extra step. They know how serious it is.
Right.
Yeah, I agree. And the interesting thing is, to answer your question about productivities, I think they've improved. I kind of go on the idea that if they haven't improved, they certainly haven't dropped back. And I think that's for a couple of reasons. One is, certainly traditionally in the last number of years, we've seen schedules, continue to get pushed, and we continue to see trade stacking and things like that, and to where we have multiple trades in one area working on top of each other, and just not really a nice way of saying it, the general contractor and owner may not care about the productivities and the efficiencies, just getting the job done, to where now they're having to think about having an area available for us to go work in that's kind of committed and devoted to us. So the area is usually open. We usually have it segmented to us. We can spread out a little bit. We can be more efficient in terms of our people. And I don't think it's a negative thing. And if you were to ask me what I hope stays after the end of COVID, I hope that stays a little bit in that, hey, we have some areas where we can open up on job sites and work and not be on top of other trades.
So this is going out to both of you guys. Is labor shortage an issue right now? And I ask that because, hey, we all know someone that's gotten sick, right? And obviously you guys don't want them on the job site, but for those workers that are laid off, are they coming to you asking for work? And I mean workers that, weren't with you prior.
Yeah, sure.
So yeah, how do you respond? Is labor shortage an issue right now?
John, I'll take it first here since you've gone first last few times, but not really yet, because I think most of where we're seeing, we had some drop off in terms of projects either slowing down or stopping. And so we've had some drop off, and we certainly made it an electable decision that each employee needed to make for themselves. Do you take off, or do you come back to work, or do you stay working, and all that? So there was definitely some fluctuation in the manpower in terms of demand and in terms of who was available. And that's kind of seemed to work itself out as we go. I will tell you, one of my concerns isn't today. It's as people have been laid off and this inflated unemployment rate that they're being able to have and enjoy right now. How hard is it to get them to come back, strap on their tools, and go to work when they can sit at home and essentially make pretty close to the same wage being at home on unemployment. So that's one of those darn if you do, darn if you don't types of scenarios. I think it was great that the government put some safety measures in place for people that have obviously lost their job. So I'm not trying to be negative there, but I do think it adds a different wrinkle and a different challenge as we try to onboard people. Are they ready to come back to work, or are they not? Do they feel safe at work, those that were concerned, or are they not? Those questions remain to be unsolved right now.
What say you, John?
Oh, I was going to follow up and saying we don't have a labor problem right now, but it's yet to be determined. Shawn made a great point. I think going through this crisis right now, the government has done a good job of taking care of those that have been. I say a good job. They've helped quite a few of the people that have been sitting on the put on the sidelines, that they don't need to come out and look for jobs right now. And I think the work has slowed enough that it's kind of retained the people that do want to come to work, and we can retain those people. I think is yet to be determined the next several months on how this thing plays out. So I don't know what the next play is. You know, it's hard. And to be honest with you, I sat around with a management team just day before yesterday, and we tried to determine, okay, what are we going to do? And it's hard to do that when you don't know what's coming at you.
Right.
So it's undetermined, and I don't know how it's going to be in the next several months. So I agree with Shawn, everything you just said. It's going to be difficult to make the decisions what we're going to do in the future when we don't know exactly what's going to happen yet.
Are you guys still bidding jobs?
Yes.
Yes, sure.
That's great news. What would you say on average is your backlog right now? Into mid 2021, do you have things going out to 2022?
Depends on the location for us. We don't typically see things that are out to 2022. We certainly have them in some markets that have mega projects. You know, right now, the difference is, yes, we're bidding work. I think the difference right now is the work that we're bidding is a little smaller, maybe in contract value. So the smaller developers, owners are moving forward, where some of the mega jobs, larger projects, more complex, either have stalled out in the development and the conversation with the design team, or an owner has decided, hey, I'm going to tap the brakes here a little bit because this is obviously a bigger financial commitment. So we've definitely seen the contract value of sizes get smaller, but there is activity, and I'm blessed and grateful for that.
So in other words, we need to be scared when we stop seeing the cranes and booms out there, right?
I don't think you're going to see cranes and booms. It's not going to stop. I think there's opportunities for a lot of different people with money on the sidelines and investing and you know, spending the money and doing it for construction. One thing that Shawn kind of hit on there was about the design teams. You know, my last couple of conversations with friends of mine that are architects, they're taking a whole new approach to designs in their buildings, and they've got a lot of owners who are asking, you know, what are we going to do now, and what's the future look like, and how are we going to design around the social distancing, and you know, I mean, as of right now, they're saying that they're redesigning quite a bit of work based on what they may think the future looks like. So with that said, there are some slowdowns and there are some pushbacks and a few delays, but we're still seeing quite a bit of activity. I think it's because of the cost of money is relatively cheap right now. So they're investing and they can get the work done a little less expensive than they did maybe a year ago, you know, and when they were planning. They're going to take advantage of it while they can right now.
John, I think you're right. And I think that there is, because I work a lot with architects, and you're right, they're asking me all sorts of questions about different, in one of the industries, I work in the terrazzo industry, and because the floors we've used them in hospitals for years, because they're more for bioengineering, they're more less germ filled with grout joints and all. And so I know they're thinking about that. We're trying to realize that. The other issue is, and I was wondering about you guys, and I got to imagine both you guys are somewhat experienced in modular construction. I've heard talk that there's always been the push for more modular construction, which is the off-site building of things and bringing assembled so that a lot of that construction is done off site to speed construction and keep costs down. And I'm just wondering if you guys are thinking, because I've heard this from others, that there's a possibility there might be a bigger and greater push to that in the future.
Yeah, there's no doubt about that. I mean, that's always been on the mindset of the designers and the builders, and you're gonna, I mean, just my personal opinion, but I've seen it with all the discussions I've had that's going to continue to be an opportunity for a bunch of different outfits, and it's going to grow. There's no doubt about it, especially with the density of the urban environments. You know, whether it's the East Coast, West Coast, Texas, I mean, doesn't matter where it's at, just people moving downtown and working in downtown environments.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's a great selling point when you're trying to differentiate, you know, your abilities that, hey, if you can do it prefab and keep people off the site where other trades can maybe use that space, that's certainly an advantage. I also think, though, on the flip side of that, Mark, is we still got to keep these manufacturing facilities safe. So yeah, we may not have that risk on the job site anymore in terms of the virus and those types of things, but you have a very real potential in a manufacturing facility where you have the same people reporting day in, day out, working right next to the guy that, you know, consistently, that adds a different layer of concerns.
Yeah, Mark, I got a question for you, actually. I think John and Shawn were both more or less alluded to it in some respects, but for the design builder or going forward, are architects going to be designing, say, more enclosed spaces like in offices? So instead of the open floor plan with cubicles, are we going to have, you know, now, I don't know, just maybe quote unquote safer environments for the workers in those offices and those type of workers?
Well, I think John and Shawn both pointed that out, that they're involved with projects right now that architects are redesigning to, and I think it was you, John, that said that, right? That you're dealing with projects they're doing that with. And I'm seeing the same thing. And I know that they're dealing with and I haven't gotten into any of the wall part of it, or the wall and ceiling part of it, where they're starting to look for, but I don't deal with drywall so much anymore, but I would think that they've got to start looking at that too, and looking at materials that are going to be easier to clean and easier to wipe down and are not habitats for virus and stuff like that, which is what, and I can just tell you, like, I do the stucco, and then I also do terrazzo and terrazzo floors, because it has that benefit of that with the epoxy, and they actually have some biocides they can put into it. So there's a big push on that. We're actually doing a lot of programs with architects and telling them how they can do that in the sealers and such and that. And I just have to imagine, and that's what when I tell people this, I say there's certainly a lot of challenges today. There's nobody's going to deny it. I know you guys are going to, but it's the ones, there's also going to be some, and you guys have mentioned this. I've heard that from both of you. There's also going to be some opportunities out there. And I think the companies that are a little bit more nimble, they're cash strong, they've got good financial background, and they can stay nimble. They've got to stay on top of this and kind of keep their ear to the ground in a way and kind of know what's going on, which is why I think these webinars are important, because if you're sitting in your office and you're not paying attention to what's going around, you're going to find out the world changed and you missed out on your opportunity. And I can see Shawn nodding his head yes. And I know, but I can just tell by listening to these two guys, they're absolutely on that edge. They are thinking, we've already had these discussions, right?
Correct. Yeah.
Yeah, not necessarily sit in my office, though. I might be at the house every now and then doing this. Like my other teammates.
Talking to your dog, right, John?
The kids in the background.
And that actually brings up another question, is that I've had this with a few contractors that told me, they said, you know, and in fact, I will tell you, it was a New York contractor that said that, you know, I've learned that I used to have people at my offices, her office was downtown in Manhattan, and they would insist on the supervisors and foremans would all meet Friday afternoon, wherever, and it took them an hour and a half to get in. They'd have an hour meeting and go, in fact, you know what? This Zoom meeting stuff works pretty well when they figured out doing it. She goes, and they actually found out, kind of going back to what you said earlier, it made them a little bit more productive. So she said, we're actually going to mandate that from now on. We're going to keep the Zoom thing going or whatever webinar for, or go to meeting or whatever. I'm not trying to promote one over the other, but try to keep that going because it makes it so they can actually go sit in their truck in a way and wireless. They go in and log into the meeting and be more productive to go just right to another job site. So are you guys finding that too?
Yes.
Yeah, I mean, the interesting thing is we made the decision to close our offices, and by closing, I mean, we have a couple people in the office, but other than that, everybody's telecommuting. And we really, although it's different, we haven't dropped off anything in terms of our business. I'm a little disappointed because I get a lot of value and a lot of energy out of our group meetings and things like that. And, you know, just the ability to horse around and have fun with somebody in the hallway, that type of stuff. But hey, we'll get to that hopefully. Hopefully that's just a big part of the culture and a big part of the team environment. But hey, we're doing happy hours on Zoom as teams about every other week, and we'll bring your drink and sit down and have fun and tease each other. So we're doing what we can, but it certainly has changed the way we'll probably move in the future, as Mark said, because there is some efficiencies. We can find some ways to get people in and out where they don't have to travel, and we'll try to do that, certainly.
Well, speaking of the camaraderie and the fellowship, moving forward, do you guys have a thirst to get out? Are you suffering from any kind of like wanderlust, or has this whole thing just turned everything upside down? And so let's talk about trade shows. Would you be attending a trade show again, or would you be more apt to do like the virtual shows, to where you kind of go from booth to booth and then look and see what Armstrong's providing, Semco, so on and so forth? What are your thoughts on that? I mean, obviously, if you're in sales, you might want to be in front of people instead of just behind Zoom, but take it away. What are you thinking? John?
Well, my initial thoughts are I'm excited to see what kind of innovative and novel ideas that our industry and our manufacturers and our suppliers come up with in getting in front of clients. It's very difficult. Right now, I'm making phone calls to my clients, respectively, about once every other week, and I'm just touching bases. How you doing? How the kids? How's the dog doing? I can't come see you. I can't come, sit down with you. So that's going to be the biggest change. The evolution of our sales and how that works. If this continues for a long time, and I'm excited to see what a trade show would look like. I'm not necessarily excited to see just a video of people's products, but I'm thinking somebody's going to come up with a novel idea on how to produce it and how to get it in front of their clients. And then, in other words, I think we've opened up doors for transformation for our whole industry, not just the contracting and the installation side, but also the sales and manufacturing, HR, just like Shawn was talking about, social environments, getting with our own people and getting to know them, a facial contact over screen is a little more difficult than sitting and seeing a response. And when you start talking about fun stuff to do. So.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. I think associations are going to have to basically rip up their plan book and start from scratch. And that's what I would advise them to do, is go, okay, if things come back and we can keep some tradition, then I would love to meet. I really would. I'm a guy that is ready to jump out of Kansas City and go do something. So I'm pretty restless. And so, hey, if there's an opportunity to meet and there's value in meeting, I'll be there and I'll be at the table. And I personally will be fine with that. I'll be comfortable with that. But for those that aren't, there's going to be some opportunities to create some other tracks. And I think, and I'm, work with a lot of our industry associations, and I'm telling them all, rip up the playbook, start from scratch, get rid of your old way of thinking, or that it's got to look like this, or it's got to just start over. and see what happens. Bring in some young folks that are maybe more technology savvy and more comfortable in these types of environments. What do they have to teach you? And just start from scratch.
Well, speaking
You know,
of,
Shawn,
if I can ask a quick question, speaking of technology and sales for both you guys, what is your favorite technology that's putting you in front of your customers? It's really making a difference.
Internally, we use Teams a lot because you can do a lot of different things with Teams in terms of attachments and chats and things like that. I just think it's a great technology for content as well as a visual. The capabilities to on a visual where you can have a larger group on Teams is kind of limited. But if you're having 3 to 4 people and you need content as well, man, it's terrific. For a larger group environment, you can't beat Zoom, because you can get more Brady Bunch squares on the screen, if you will, and see more faces. So that's what we tend to navigate to.
Yeah, and our as you mentioned, chasing our clients down, the good old fashioned telephone. Picking up a phone and calling your clients. I mean, yeah. That's working as well as anything right now. So again, we're kind of going through the crisis management part of it and really not worked into the transformation and the evolution. We're still trying to see how do we get there and how do we do it better than the next guy. So going through the phones is still staying in contact with them is what my people are doing and myself.
Do you think there'll be a growth in online training? And the reason I ask that is I run the Stucco Manufacturers Association. Of course, I run the Terrazza, 2 associations. And by the way, we had to cancel our convention and we have another one. Just what you said, Shawn, we've already torn it. We said, it's going to be a whole new world. And this is going to kind of lead into my next one is that, because we've already done exactly what you said. I tore up the playbook. I said, it's not going to be the same. I don't know. One thing that I thought is training. And both my groups do a lot of training. And I've already been working on it. We're actually got programs ready to go. We're thinking about doing more online virtual training because we normally like to get in, we travel around the country and we try to have actual physical meetings where we bring in machines, we actually do that. But we now are realizing we think that there's going to be because training doesn't go away. These guys got to be trained. And there are certain things you can do. And it's harder to do it online. But if you do it smart, and we're doing some virtual things and actually stuff that you would think, well, for example, in stucco plastering, you think, how could you train somebody to plaster virtual online? With the right videos and the right commentator and the right sort of thing, we've actually created some mock-ups that are done that I've even had seasoned union plasterers go, I didn't know that. I learned something. So that's sort of one thing I'm working on is really pushing. And I'm just wondering, I'm actually asking you as contractors, do you guys see that as being a valuable tool, or do you think that, no, that'll never take off?
I just tell you, we're already doing it. Be honest with you, I'm sure Shawn, has been doing it. We've already been doing that. And this is just going to validate and really inspire us to continue doing it even more, becoming more proficient at it.
Yeah, I agree. And the interesting thing is how many of us have jumped on YouTube to figure out how to do something around the house that you had never done before. I mean, every one of us. So these how-to videos are becoming a part of just society. So if we can elevate those and make those better and train people, I think certainly for companies that maybe don't have the ability because of time and schedules or dollars to send somebody away that is going to be away from the business to go do a week's worth of training or go to a convention or whatever. This is going to be a terrific avenue to continue to develop their skill sets. I think you're going to see more and more of it. I mean, look how much the world has changed in terms of, like I said, YouTube, TED Talks, LinkedIn trainings, all of that. So there's definitely a desire because these people are generating a lot of money. And so it's just a matter of connecting quality information, like you said, Mark.
No, Shawn, I agree with you 100%. It's funny because just like you said, I've learned do a lot of things from YouTube, and you kind of learn how to, I just fixed a thermostat on a refrigerator because I had to do it. And I learned how to do it. It was amazing. And getting to that, but that's where I think that, and I'll use stucco because plastering is that's my background really, is that there's a lot of them, a lot of these I do it, but they're doing it they're not professional. They're not an authoritative source. And that's where I think that as an association, and I know you guys are part of those, when it comes from that, from let's say the Stucco Manufacturers Association, okay, this is the real deal. These guys are the pros, not just some backyard guy doing it, saying how to do it. And then, so I actually think that's what's also going to be important. But thank you guys.
To your
Help
point,
me out
Mark,
there.
is that what you're asking? Is that we're concerned about, say, the next generation's quality and craftsmanship? So the labor, is that going to suffer due to social distancing, not being able to be, say, a little closer in quarters on training and things like that? Are we at risk there?
I'll give my opinion on, then I'd like these two more esteemed gentlemen to go. I think it is at risk. And I think it goes back to what we were talking about earlier, that that's a challenge that we're gonna have to face because we've got a labor shortage, and that's why modules going, and I understand that, but it's also, there can be an opportunity. And if you're smart about it and you do it and you get something, and I can tell you right now, I'm working on one that we think is really, really good and really smart. And if you kind of stay ahead of that curve, you could actually maybe turn that curve a little bit the other way.
Yeah, I mean, our industry has had a problem recruiting and training for a long, long time. So this is nothing new. This is not brought on by the virus. I just don't think as an industry we have ever really made the commitment to do it right. Because, hey, I did it the hard way, and by golly, you're going to do it the same way I did it. So strap on a set of tools and, screw off that board for the next 2 years and call me later. And that just doesn't work. And I know that before the virus and all that, we have had some really good conversations in our industry about recruiting the next generation. What's it going to do? How's it going to look? And I do think it has to be different. And I think we were already starting to evolve and ask hard questions. I do think that this will be part of that discussion.
Yeah, out of you two, I couldn't imagine a better kind of group of people to speak on behalf of contractors. And, as we're beginning to kind of close this particular video, I'd like you to each take a moment and maybe share a message to contractors throughout North America who may be frustrated, scared, have some type of trepidation. You guys have shown us a lot of optimism given these hard times. So, yeah, would you please share some words of encouragement?
Yeah. We wouldn't be in business if it wasn't for our people. So if we have to invest in our people, we have to put the protocol in place to make sure that they follow those safety guidelines related not only to their safe practices they do in their everyday work and task, but with this new environment that we live in. And we have to enforce that to make sure that happens. And it's all about keeping the quality of people, because our end product is not going to change. The requirements and the quality that we have to meet, we have to train our people to produce that. And that takes a great quality of an individual, and we have to instill that in their behaviors. And that starts at the beginning. That's when you bring them first on a job site and you onboard them and saying, guys, we will not allow a secondary type finished product. Bottom line, it's going to be perfect, or you're going to have to do it over. It's pretty simple. And training an individual to do that is kind of exciting, because when they go through a workforce development training program and they get to graduate to the next level, it's almost like they graduate in college. So it's exciting. Anyway, it's all about our people.
Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more, John. It is about our people. We're a service-related business. Our service obviously being the construction, that's our takeaway. But we're about the people. Hey, I hope as I'm going to assume that we're talking to leaders here as they've taken the time to review this. I love that John has his mask on. I've got mine right here. And as leaders, we have to lead by example. So if we're going to ask our folks to do certain things, we need to step up and do the same things. And we need to be encouragers, because there's a lot of uncertainty. And with uncertainty, There's sometimes depression. There's sometimes mood swings. There's just chaos. But if our people can look at us and go, hey, there's a constant there. They care about us. My company cares about me and my development and my safety. That's going to go a long ways. As business owners, I think we need to, as I said, think about how life may look afterwards. A lot of uncertainty there, but we have to be ready and willing to face the challenge. In the interim, hey, take care of your client, but also watch your cash. Cash is king as always, and no better time than now, as people are going to be watching the outlay of dollars, and just make sure that you keep that in mind and watch the essentials. And it's blocking and tackling at that point. So go back to football. But thank you very much, Mark and John and Jill. Thank you for allowing John and I to spend a few minutes with you, and always great to see you too, John.
Thank you, guys. It was great.
Yeah, thank you, John and Shawn. We definitely appreciate your leadership and within your companies and within the industry. And we thank everybody for watching today. If you have not already subscribed to Walls and Ceilings, you can go to wconline.com and you get up for our digital edition, our e-newsletters, so you can stay up to date that next time we do one of these great videos with some incredible leaders. And please, everyone, stay safe and healthy out there, and we look forward to seeing you next time. Thanks so much.
Thank you. See ya.